Joey, Joey, Joe. Hello.
Hi. You just want to sing to me, that's fine. This will be 15 minutes of how are you?
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good morning. I keep thinking it's Friday today, and it's not Friday. I literally was about to say it's Friday. It's Thursday. It feels like Friday in my head. Maybe I'm ready to be
Yeah.
done with this.
No, I usually we usually have a bunch of gays over on Friday for Drag Race, and I usually bake something, and I was like, I'm in the mood for something citrusy to try to welcome summer, so I'm making like a baked
Mm.
lemon pudding. So I was like, I have to
Ooh.
wear a lemon shirt while I make lemon pudding, which is probably I'm probably gonna end up getting something on my shirt, but
I love that lemon shirt.
thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I've seen the show fully twice.
Oh,
My
whoa.
husband is watching it now, so I'm watching it with him. Um,
Okay.
I the show feels very personal to me.
Mm.
Um, I've had a very emotional response. I just watched the final scene with Matt Bomer at the AIDS quilt, and I lost it again. Every time I
Mm.
see that scene, I just bawl like an idiot.
You are not
Um,
alone.
yeah, there's maybe it's just because Ron is such a has been writing about this kind of time period for so many years, and there's something just really very deeply felt with me. So this is going to be 15 minutes of me gushing at you.
No, no, there's something to be said about not yet actually having the catharsis from that crisis that happened to our people. We still have not actually grieved um
Yeah.
just how much we lost in that time. Not and the sad part is the people who died lost, but also the people who are living also lost, right?
Mhm.
So it was just loss all around rather than feeling like sometimes people when they say, "Oh, you survived COVID, you get to live on happily and do your thing." But it's like even if you survive the AIDS epidemic, you're still left behind with so much pain and
Yeah.
scars. Imagine your whole life not being able to love somebody or say I love you to them. I mean, that's
Hmm.
it's too heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about the I think all the time, maybe it's because I'm getting older, and it's like I'm constantly reading about, queer history,
Mm.
and there's I just always think about I was like, just imagine how much more beautiful the world would be if that didn't happen. Think of all the gay people who could have just
Yeah.
even like I think I saw an article about like imagine what Broadway would be like if all those queer
Hmm.
artists didn't get taken from us.
And
Um,
one of the things about all of them. And one of the things I think is most powerful about our show is that a character such as Marcus, for example, defies authority.
mm,
And those men um, that left the mark on time and history only became those men because they defied the authority of saying, why must I do as I told? If I'm this, then I have to be that. Or just
mhm.
because I love men, why do I have to act a certain way or be pushed into this box? I mean, um, one of the things we have to give credit to the men that passed away and those who were some of those who are still living is that they defied authority.
Mm,
And sometimes I feel like today we don't actually have the same amount of bravery as
mm.
they had.
There's something that I kept thinking about coming back to is how maybe Marcus himself is surprised at witnessing the evolution of Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
That I think
Mm-hmm.
that is a beautiful thing to see. Like there's a moment. I mean, well, first of all, I have to say I keep thinking about how Marcus has to sort of live through the world. I don't want to say alone, but he's in a lot of spaces when he
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
alone, um, not just like emotionally and thematically, considering that he's one of the only, people of color in these spaces, but something physically where he is also, there's something about like when he leaves the cozy corner when it's rated and he's alone. It's a
That's right.
sort of singular, he's very comfortable, I think, in that sort of singular realm of being. And then to sort of think about that and then think about the very end when the violence starts happening and Frankie is yelling "Happy birthday, Harvey," and he tells him, I just got chills thinking about it. He tells him, "You're beautiful," and it's just like
Hmm.
telling him he's beautiful in public, where people just might happen to hear him, in
Hmm.
front of
A flaming
officers,
car.
a flaming car. I mean, they're bloody, their clothes are
Right,
torn.
they're torn and tattered. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
yeah.
something very beautiful about thinking of that physical singularity that he puts himself into where he goes at the end. That's not really a
Well,
question, that's just
he's
an observation.
Marcus. Marcus in some ways always the witness, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's always the one that either receives information or is either holding it and giving it to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
He is the things pass through him, and through his eyes, we are able to understand and filter how he feels about the world and how the world feels about him,
Mm-hmm.
and how he's able to form love. Um, I think the way that he looks at Hawk is very different than the way he looks at Tim, which is
Mm-hmm.
very different than the way he looks at Frankie, which is very different than the way he looks at Jerome. I wanted to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
all four of those ways of looking at those humans were specific,
Oh yeah.
and that the specificity of the love that he carries for each of those were also different and specific. I think that moment you talk about where he looks at Frankie, um, one of the things that I think is genius about the television show is that there's always more than one pair of eyes on a character at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So though Marcus is looking at Frankie, right behind him, Jerome is looking at this
Yeah.
representation of two black men falling in love or admitting their love, and fighting for their love. So I think the dual moment of "You're so beautiful" is not only is he giving a gift to Frankie, but he's also giving a gift to Jerome,
Mm-hmm.
by using those words. So I think things like that, I've always, I love that Ron um, and was able to put that into a script, and that I was able to come and say, but hey, look at actually what you're doing here. Look at the triangles that you're forming. And I think the piece is better for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how the camera sort of, whenever I think you guys kiss and then the camera sort of focuses on Jerome's expression. That's another moment where I'm just like, all right, just a sobbing idiot right here. Um,
Oh man.
I kind of wanted to ask about that's funny you bring that up, the difference with how he sees, views, carries himself around different people, just because something
Hmm.
about this last rewatch that I was going through, the sort of just specifically talking about Hawk and Tim, there is sort of I won't say protectiveness, that's not the right word, but there's something about the care that
Hmm.
Marcus speaks to Tim. I kept
Hmm.
wondering, is he attracted to Tim? Is it sort of
Hmm.
like I was just, that was really fascinating to me. But then also there, between you and Matt's character, there are a lot of similarities between the two of you, but there's also obviously very clear differences. And
Yeah,
I guess I was gonna ask you about them separately, but I guess since we're talking about them
sure,
together,
sure.
yeah, just tell me
Let
about
me,
that because yeah.
yeah, let me say one thing that I think stands then and stands now is that all we have in this world is who we love.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, you take out money, you take out success, you take out race, what you're left with is love.
Mhm.
And so by nature of that, I think that forms a community, right?
Mhm.
In 1953, there was no real gay community. There
Mhm.
was no real, I mean, there was a black community, but it was segregated from the white community. Um, there was there are short classes of rich and poor. Marcus somehow finds his way or exists within all those communities.
Mm.
But the one common thread from all of those is that every person loves. And so why he tends to Hawk and Tim, why my justification of why he tends to Hawk and Tim so clearly is because they share the same kind of love that he has,
Mm.
a love for another man. And at the end of the day, I'm gonna stand up for my brother that loves the same way that I love before I stand up for anything else.
Yeah.
Um, if you talk, and then if you think about his relationship to Hawk, Destiny Ekaraga, who was our director for episodes 3 and 7, said something so beautiful to me one day. In the scene at the top of episode 3, where we're standing at the bar, I'm on one side and Hawk's on the other, and we're
Yeah.
talking about, it's his birthday, it's Tim's birthday, you missed it.
Hmm.
There was a different opening to that scene, and it ended up actually getting cut in the edit, but Destiny told me to walk up to that bar as if I'm exactly Hawk myself. She said, "You and Hawk
Mm.
are the same character that live in like it's like looking at a mirror, except in the mirror, one is white and one is black, and that's the only difference.
Mm.
But treat
Oh wow.
Marcus with that same kind of quality that you have information, you're knowledgeable, you're powerful, you're sexy, you're in charge." And I thought, whoa, that is a beautiful way of seeing this character. It's
Hmm.
like looking through a portal, in the multiverse of fellow travelers, I could be Hawk, you know. Um, and so
Yeah.
I think that for me really justified the bond of their friendship.
Yeah, there I love those scenes when when you guys are at the bar, and I think we see it at least two times, maybe three, when you're on opposite sides of the table. Like
Yes,
the
yeah.
table is almost reflective too. So it's sort
Hmm.
of like, I don't know if that's
Hmm.
just the lighting or whatever table Anastasia picked out for it, but it was just like it's just I thought that a lot about how similar they are. I mean, they talk even in a couple of scenes. It's a a almost a joking line, but like you sort of complete each other's sentences almost. It's sort of like,
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
I would pay good money for a fellow travelers multiverse. That's fellow I would prefer fellow travelers over like Doctor Strange. Sorry about it, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, look, I remember there was a running joke on set one day because somebody they didn't tell the extras like what show this is. They said fellow travelers, and
Yeah.
it's all they knew. And they were like, and apparently somebody overheard someone on the phone be like, "Yeah, I'm shooting this show about gay time travelers."
That's
I think
amazing.
it's so funny because I'm like, well, they could be like that's a cool TV show, like a kind of like Queer Eye for the queer people, but like we're traveling through time, you know?
I actually have thought, like, this is so random. I can't believe I'm telling you this. There was a moment, and I was like, why hasn't anyone written a screenplay or a movie or a series about a queer character who goes back in time and, tries to stop the AIDS crisis? I was like, that. Let's
Mm.
do that. Maybe that could be Ron's
Ooh,
next project. I was like, I don't know.
that's
Maybe that can go into about like meeting all the people that who lost their lives but didn't this time around. So who knows?
yeah, or focus on the scientist. I think
Mm-hmm.
we never actually talked about that, like what it's like to be in those labs and the people who were on the clock, like they had a ticket, the race was on to find something.
Yeah.
That's an interesting story for me because that puts stakes on it.
Mm.
All right, we're just
Um,
dreaming of projects now.
yeah, I know. This is really just a pitch meeting. This is all this is all this is. Um, I wanted to ask maybe if when Marcus is like writing for the Post,
Hmm.
or when he has run-ins with Roy Cohn's thugs here, um, if he ever thought maybe at some point in his life that he would have like a mentorship element in his career, like he becomes a teacher. It made me think about fatherhood, whether he wanted,
Hmm.
whether he, I imagine maybe he thought, um, maybe he would have pangs later, even though he tells his father otherwise, that he doesn't want kids. But I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm always curious about characters who are so dead set on a certain type of life, and then life kind of unexpectedly happens, and how they
Right,
sort of
right.
accept that. Yeah.
I think maybe that's the one place where Marcus and I actually truly did meet.
Mhm.
In that, like, my kind of philosophy is kind of like I'm not down for a family.
Right, right.
And I'm not down for kids. And I kind of brought that into Marcus, I think, more so than the script really tends to.
Okay.
I think, but I also think that Marcus is afraid to let people in,
Hmm.
and so when that happens and somebody does get inside of you, quite well, actually, he's a top, so someone nobody actually gets physically inside of him. But when someone
Got
does get inside of
it.
you, you begin to quite literally open up and change, right? And so, there comes a time where when you are at the forefront of a movement, it is your job, whether you like it or not, to look back and extend a hand.
Mhm.
And I think as we see Marcus go through the decades, it becomes his purpose he has to become a teacher. That actually
Mhm.
is the only direction that he has to go to. And then he has to become a father because in being a teacher to a student, again, where there is no sense of community, that's a responsibility. That's a charge. That is
Yeah.
something higher than you. That's something that you have no kind of control over, and something that you must submit to. And I'm just glad that this character um, represents someone who follows that rather than trying to resist it. He
Yeah.
actually says, "Okay, let me lean in. Let me actually lean in and see what happens."
You know, that's interesting that you say that. Uh, I had actually wondered. I wonder this a lot, that if something happens where I, as a queer 40 something man, I wonder if something happens where I have to embrace a call to action. I hope I'm brave enough to do that. And I feel like that.
Mm.
I think about that all the time, actually. In terms of
Well,
like, even I don't came to a realization that I didn't want kids. I have a dog now. It's fine. That's better. But
mhm.
but yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off. What were you gonna say?
No, I'm gonna say, well, my friend, the charge is on us now
Yeah.
for this presidential election of 2024. Um,
Oh.
we each have a responsibility to kind of stand up,
Mhm.
and make sure that people take action. I think one of the things that uh, we often take for granted is that nothing happens unless we do it ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think Marcus knew that somehow. That moment in episode 3 where comes back to his office and he lets
Mhm.
out that excruciating anger scream
Yeah.
and then realize, why am I screaming? I
Mhm.
have the power.
Yeah.
It's in my literal hands.
Mhm.
you know, I think you'd be surprised at how freeing and how joyful it will feel to step into your power and use your power.
Mhm.
Um, so I hope that when the moment arises, you'll feel it within yourself and be able to be like, hell yeah, I got
Yeah.
this.
Sort of speaking about the oof, sort of the this arc of Marcus, I noticed a lot that I was talking about being alone and being, you know, singular, but there's there's
Mhm.
even something that you do in terms of your eye line that I was really
Mm,
fascinated by, where like maybe like I thought about it in the those two bench scenes. I think it's episode 3,
mm,
where the first time when Frankie says I wanted to paint my fingernails red, like you barely look at him for a majority of that
mhm,
scene, and then later you do. And then as we talk about becoming a teacher, becoming a parental figure, you have to look at people
mhm.
in order to give them that communication of love that they deserve to have. Um,
But that's how you create community, right?
mhm.
You have to start seeing other people. And what's beautiful about the arc of this character, he goes from seeing no one, only himself,
Tunnel vision, yeah.
tunnel vision, to being like, whoa, holy shit, you know.
It's almost like you can hear the character being like, "Wow, this is here in front of me
Yeah.
the whole time." That's really sort of that's a beautiful thing. Um, okay. You're very easy to talk to. I
Oh, thank you. So
sure.
are you. It takes two, my friend. Look.
It's the power of the lemon shirt. That's what it is. Um,
Yes.
unfortunately, have to go to my next interview. Thank you so much for your
Oh,
time. I
well,
just
thank you.
I feel the show so much, and I
I
cannot,
really appreciate that.
and I feel like every single person in here, um, I just feel like every time I watch it, I get something completely new. It's a very
Mm,
generous show, and every artist that I've spoken to from the show has been so generous and excited and very thoughtful. So
thank
think
you. Thank
think
you. We thank you for watching and thank you for receiving
hmm,
all that we had to say.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of your day, I guess.
All right, you too.
All right.
Enjoy that lemon
Oh,
pudding.
I will. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.